Hello, welcome back. This is Mike from Canavan Wealth. Mike reads the journal on January 17th. Stock market's up about 2.5% since last week. Look at that real quick. Slow, steady climb. Good for the recovery. We've seen this kind of 2 weeks in a row. Whether this will stick, or whether we'll continue to climb back up to a new high is anybody's guess. Jumping into the news. This has been a hot topic in the financial world for about 2 years now. It's funny because the story has totally changed. I think the big takeaway from this article is that there is no one single answer, no one strategy that works for everyone, that is going to make sure you see the success that you want. This is about the 60-40 portfolio. This is a stock between typically known as 60% stocks and 40% bonds. It's funny because a year and a half ago, kind of before this big downturn started, the 60-40 portfolio was kind of maligned. No one wanted to talk about it. It was old news. It's the way investing has largely been going on for 30, 40 years. And now all of a sudden it's back. Again, this is take all of this with a grain of salt because it's extremely important that you understand the reasons behind all of these things. And not just, kind of blindly follow one strategy over another. But, for 10-ish years, we went through a period where interest rates were extremely low, which makes bonds very unattractive for two reasons. One, they don't return much, right? So when the Fed funds rate is near zero and your average investment grade corporate bond is returning like 3.5%, that is not very attractive, barely ahead of inflation. And then you also run the risk of if interest rates are very low, the only place that they will likely go is up, which will hurt current bonds, driving face value down. This is what we saw in 2023 when the bond market dropped right along with the stock market because interest rates were going up. This made 60-40 portfolios effectively have 40% of dead investments in them. I'd say about probably 3 years ago, I started diversifying to what I would often talk to clients about as like a 60-20-20 portfolio, which is, really replacing a portion of your bonds with value stocks, which in value stocks did very well last year. But this is, talking about how bond funds are seeing a great inflow of cash and how the 60-40 portfolio is kind of back. It's very important that we understand that what was the best strategy for the last 10 years may not be the best strategy for the next 10 years. In fact, we see kind of repeating itself as most likely not going to be. So there's going to be some other macro trend that is going to dominate the next 10 years. And if you're constantly chasing your tail, trying to pick the strategy that was dominant in the recent history for the near future, I think you're going to be behind, right? You can see this if you look at, various stock sectors, which ones have done well, which ones haven't. You see a very similar repeat. So it's not that I have no faith in the bond market to recover, but, we've already seen I've got a video coming out about, it may already be out, about the 10-year treasury and how, that is going down despite interest rates going up. No one expects interest rates to stay where they are. So what's going to happen in the bond market over the next 10 years? I have no idea, right? We just need to be able to react and make smart, adaptable choices to that. All right, the next article is about China. China in recent years has gone from this kind of all-consuming economy, this dragon that was going to consume the world, become the world's largest economy, and we were all going to be subjected to, it, much like the world is often subjected to whatever approach the U.S. economy is taking. That has really not materialized. In fact, I would say that China has gone from, up and coming player to almost global liability, as you'll see, because so much of us, we do rely on China for a lot of things like manufacturing and labor. And it's becoming a sore point in terms of, is it going to be able to not only just sustain where it's gotten, but is it not going to regress in some way? Is the next global financial crisis not going to be because of the U.S. Junk bond market? Is it going to be because of some collapse in China. So the first thing this talks about is their struggles with COVID, right? China at the beginning seems to do very well with COVID, but due to their zero COVID policy over the last year or so, in which they've largely tamped down and shut down their everything when they get even their most tiniest of COVID outbreaks. It seems like their vaccines are not as sophisticated as the ones that at least Europe and America is using, although I believe they are making a change there. COVID is wrecking them right now. There's no other polite way to say it. It is just, their population does not have the herd immunity or whatever it is that you want to call it here. So they're going through a really hard time with COVID. Their second thing is, there's another video that I talked about world population. China's population is shrinking, and I think to most people that would be astonishing to learn. Dropped by 850,000 last year. That's something that really impacts an economy. And most people might think, well, population going down is a good thing. From an economic standpoint, it is not, especially for countries. If a population is shrinking, that means that the demographics of your population is shifting towards older. And older workers tend to need to be supported. Right here in America, we have Social Security. And if this were to happen in America, that means we have more people on Social Security and less people paying taxes into it. And as people live longer, the age, the number of years in which they're on Social Security increases. So it's like this double whammy. In a society like China, where it's pretty much expected that younger generations will live with and care for senior generations, this is going to become more and more skewed for them. And is a big deal. This is something they're really trying to figure out and answer. This, of course, dates back to their one-child policy, which they had, I think, for almost 30 years, in which families were restricted to have, one child. Even though they have undone that, a lot of this is just kind of cultural now. Most families just kind of expect we're just going to have one child, which means this could not only persist, but it could actually get worse. So this is a big deal for China, their shrinking population, because they're kind of seen as the world labor force, and their labor pool is getting smaller. And then it talks down here about some ways that they could overcome this, largely with robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, and whatnot. But that would really involve them modernizing into a modern service-based economy. And that's going to be really tough with the way they run their government, and the control that the Communist Party needs in China. And this is not a discourse on, various ways of government, but China's Communist Party is incredibly controlling. And I personally, this is just my opinion, this is not from the article, believe that it will be very, very hard for them to modernize to an economy like the United States with a party that is as controlling as they are. The next one is this FTC proposed ban on non-compete clauses. So non-compete clauses, prevent you from going to work for competitors when you leave a company. These used to be used pretty narrowly for like highly compensated employees, or people have access to trade secrets, or certain types of employees that, if you went to work from Microsoft to Apple or something like this, it'd be a conflict of interest. But it's really spread. I have a buddy who really had a problem with this in an industry where it's just kind of absurd to think that, there's some type of a trade secret. This was ridiculous. So the FTC is proposing, a pretty widespread ban on this type of policy. The article talks that they may walk that back and allow them for, certain sectors. But specifically, I wanted to talk about this, which it was about deferred pay, because I've had several clients that have shown me their deferred pay plans. We have one here at LPL that I could use. And these things are really complicated. And most people assume a level of flexibility about these that does not exist. I haven't seen every deferred pay plan, so I don't want to, don't think I'm talking specifically about your deferred pay plan, but these things are, and they are definitely designed to retain employees. I would say that is the biggest benefit I think companies see around a deferred pay plan, is that it largely locks the employee in, at least all the ones that I've seen, to working for them until they retire. Now, maybe there's some out there that are more flexible than the ones I've looked at. That may be the case, but this is just kind of a warning that if deferred pay plans start popping up as a way to get the same benefit that a non-compete clause is, you need to be very careful and read in fine detail how these things work, and assume that there is zero flexibility beyond what is presented in the plan document or whatever it is. So they can be great. I'm not discouraging people from using deferred pay plans. I've looked at ours. It's not the right fit for me at this point. It has nothing to do with me staying at LPL or anything along those lines. But these are extremely nuanced and very particular. They have to be that way in order to meet federal guidelines around how you pay people. So the article itself, really just talks about, new strategies that companies are going to use in order to keep employees at the company. It's really not super interesting, to be perfectly honest. That was it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will do answer videos as those come in to the best of my ability with compliance. And you can always, shoot me an email or a call if you'd like to set an appointment. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon.